What's up, everybody? So I'm gonna be making a video series on a trip I did back between November 2021 and February of 2022. On that trip, I went to 70 college basketball games, and I want to talk about some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes. I only recorded the vlogs, the basketball arenas, but there was so much other stuff that happened, and I wanted to cover like some of the stuff I was thinking about, some of the stuff I was doing on my quote unquote off time while that was going on. So I think in this episode I want to set up context as to how that tour came to be. So I want to start by when I was setting up the tour, and I'll say that had been in the works for a couple years at that point. I'll say I started working on this when I was in college. I was a sophomore at Jacksonville State, and I think it was in Doghead Hall. I was staying in Doghead Hall, and one day I'm just creating a spreadsheet of all the college basketball arenas in the country, and there was like 350 something at the time, and I just put them all on a spreadsheet. And then I figured out I was trying to figure out how quickly you could attend a game at each arena. Let me rephrase that. How long it would take you to attend a men's college basketball game at each arena. And based on my rough calculations, well, actually what I did was I started off with a West schedule where I would do a game at West, because if you look at a college basketball map, the West half is like really, you have the Pacific Coast that has everything together, but then like all the Rocky Mountain states and then there's like a line that goes from North Dakota to Texas. From that line until like the Pacific Coast, it's like each arena is sparse. It's like, I didn't explain that well. Basically, there's not a lot of arenas in the West. That's what I'm trying to say here. So I figured if you were to do something like that, start in the West, that way you get the hardest part out of the way, and then you think, then you go to the South, then you go to the Northeast. And I figured if you dedicated your life to this, it would take you 3 years if you attended a game every day of the regular season. And I figured out in the West and in the South, you can't do it every day, because I know like in January and February, like Sundays, they don't play games in the regular season. And then in the off season, I said regular season, I meant conference season. Conference season is January, February, and March. So like there'll be very few Sunday games in January, February, or March. And conferences have changed since then. I was doing this in 2018, 2019, so teams are in different conferences then. I know like schools like UAB and Memphis, they're in the American and they play on Sunday now. But that wasn't the case when I was doing this tour when I was doing this project in 2017, 2018. So anyway, I wasn't thinking this was ever going to actually happen. This was a traveling salesman problem I was working on. I was just curious to see how quick it would be. And I didn't do it for the other two regions, but I figured that if you dedicated your life to this and you had unlimited resources, you could do it in 3 years. And so that answer was satisfactory enough. So I kind of just put that away. Then I graduated JSU 2020, and then I started working. But I lived on the western half of the state of Alabama. I lived close to Tuscaloosa. So I ended up getting a job in Tuscaloosa, and so this would be 20. Yeah, so I get that in 2020, and then I'm working there in 2021. So I remember working on kind of like a small version of a tour. that I was going to do on weekends, where I would go to college basketball venues in the southeast United States, so Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. I'm working on a spreadsheet where I'm trying to figure out how many games in those 3 states I could attend on Saturdays and off days, and I'd have a week off for PTO, so figure all that out. And I figured I could have done all those arenas. Now I would have had a couple of Sundays where I would have been getting home really late, maybe early Monday morning, getting no rest for the next day. But my point in saying that was I was going to do a trip like this at some point. And the idea was, at the time, I was going to do this trial run where I do it around the southeast. And if I liked what I was doing on every Saturday during that college basketball season, the next season I was going to save up as much money as I could, and then go out west the next year, quit my job, and go out west the next season. Well, we get to October of 2021, and my job decides to let me go. I won't get into that. But this is where I decide, okay, well, I've got some money saved up here. A reasonable person would say, okay, well, you got $10,000 or $15,000. You need to put that down for a house. You know, you need to buckle down, get another job, have another house. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, I worked on this project years ago. So clearly I wanted to do it, and I may be in a situation in my life where I'll never have that opportunity to do it again. Where I can, because, you know, I don't have a significant other. And I'm not riddled with a lot of debt. I didn't have any student debt when I graduated, so I think the only loan I have is my car payment at this point, and some rent that I'm paying my folks. So I decide, okay, well, I'm never gonna have this situation in life again where I have this freedom to do a trip like this. So what the heck, we're going out west. So because this all happens in October, it's 1 month before the season begins. I immediately go to work, and so I want to so the reason I'm able to stay afloat during this whole thing was because while I was working that job, I was also door dashing in Tuscaloosa, and this is going to be a common theme during the trip out west. This is how I'm part of the reason I stay afloat during this whole thing, is because I'm not making as much money as I was on my day job, and yeah, a lot of the money is going to vehicle expenses, but I'm able to stay afloat during this trip. So I lose my office job, and then I decide, okay, I'm gonna start door dashing around Tuscaloosa to make some money, and then that's gonna fund the trip out west. So yeah, I believe I had about 10 or 15,000 when I start this trip. I DoorDash for I would have DoorDash for 3 or 4 weeks straight, and the only days I took off DoorDashing was a couple of hockey games that happened in October, and I start a SPHL tour, but that's not relevant for this vlog, other than to know that I'm doing that to kind of test some things. So I realized when I'm going to go out west, I'm doing the entire west, and that means I'm going to do the Rockies, I'm going to do the Pacific Coast, I'm going to go to Seattle, I'm going to go to El Paso. So there's going to be a bunch of different climates, but one problem is I'm living in Alabama, and one thing we don't have in Alabama is snow, and one thing that they do have in the Rocky Mountains is snow and ice and cold weather, which Alabama does have cold weather a few days, but it's a few days. whereas I'm gonna be sleeping in my car in the Rocky Mountains. So I need to get like I get a 0 degree sleeping bag. I've got a bunch of blankets in the back seat, a bunch of pillows. Let's see what else did I have. A bunch of towels like put around my windows so I can block out the lights at the rest stops I'm going to be sleeping at. And so that's another thing, like throughout this tour, like I think I only slept at someone's house one time that whole trip. And every other night between November and February. Well, I'll take that back. I did get a hotel during Christmas break, but I'll explain that later. But yeah, so that's 3.5 month tour. About 10 days of that. So about 3 months of that, I was sleeping in my car, which I loved it, and that's why I'm doing this series. So anyway, let me get back on track here. I'm rambling. I need to. Y'all are seeing how my brain works here. So, all right. So we get to the okay. I'm gonna get to the end of October, finishing up DoorDashing in Tuscaloosa. So I'm gonna say I had about $10,000 to work with, and then other people, like a few of the people at work, people that didn't fire me, just people that work with me, found out what I'm doing, and they slipped me some money, and I haven't forgotten about that. So one of those people that found out owns Black Warrior Coffee, and this is not a sponsorship, by the way, but I'm saying this because I don't drink coffee, so I don't know how good it is, but I believe I'll trust that it's good because that's a good dude that I worked under when I was at that job. And yeah, he owns a Black Warrior Coffee, so if you want some coffee, go check him out. But anyway, yeah, him and a couple of the project managers and a couple of employees slipped me some money. And that helped out because at the time gas was pretty expensive, so every buck helped there. So we get to the beginning of November 2021, and I'd figured out the initial basketball tour, and I want to mention something right now that I know at this point it's going to change. So, and the reason is we're still dealing with COVID effects, primarily in the States. There's some states that were taking COVID more seriously than others, like California, Oregon, Washington. Yeah, they were not playing around with it even then, and it was a year and a half after the pandemic of 2020. And this is going to be a theme later on. So anyway, so I have my initial schedule, which has the 70 games, and that schedule, I'm scheduled to. Okay, well, it's not 70 at this point. It's 62 at this point. The number 62 is the important number right now because that's how many schools are in the Pacific time zone and the Mountain time zone. So 62. So my goal is to attend the 62 games, and then I would, if I had any money left, I would then make a schedule for like Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas and whatnot. So I have an initial schedule with 62 games that I'm scheduling to finish January 31st. As you know, that didn't happen, but I'll get to that later. So I have a target of January 31st to attend all 62 games. And I figured, okay, a few months off, I'm still a young buck. I think I'm 24 at this point, so like I said, I think it's the right time for me to do something like this. So I got my tour ready, and I figured out everything, and I'm gonna go to my first game is gonna be Washington State. because they're gonna have an 11 a.m. Pacific game. And to this day, I'm not or was it 12 a.m. Pacific? Was it 12 p.m.? I think it was 11 a.m. And to this day, I'm not really sure why Washington State had an 11 a.m. Pacific game. But that game ended up being like the first game of the season. Fun fact. But I'll get to that later. So, alright, so I have a tour that's going to start at Washington State. And I'm going to have 62 games. So, I'm in Alabama. That game's happening, I think, on a Monday. It's either Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember. It might have been Tuesday. Doesn't matter. So I have to leave 4 days before that. So I'm gonna say it was Tuesday. So that means Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday. That means that Friday I'm leaving Alabama, and I'm doing a 4-day drive to Washington State. So Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I leave Tuscaloosa, go through Mississippi, Tennessee, and I think Arkansas. And I made that portion of the drive before because I've driven to Minnesota to see my brother. But yeah. One thing I'm excited about the trip I'm doing here is I'm checking off states as I'm going. So I get to my first sleeping stop, which will be Springfield, Missouri. That's where Missouri State is. And I think I drive over there. I'm pretty sure I do a couple hours DoorDash, it's not that lucrative here. But I think I make enough to get a burger somewhere. So, not much to say about that one, but I think at this point I'm not really. I'm looking more for truck stops to sleep at, not like interstate rest stops. And I pull into a truck stop. I sleep in, and I make the rookiest mistake of all rookie mistakes when sleeping. I keep my car on. I keep the heat on in my car, and what happens the next morning is my battery's dead. So the next morning, I have to get a jump from some guy in a truck. And fortunately he helped me out. That was a good dude there. But yeah, that was embarrassing there. And I realized how important those blankets I had were going to be on that tour, because Missouri's a little cooler than Alabama is. And so, then the second day, I don't think anything interesting happened on the first day. So the second day, I'm going from Springfield, Missouri to, I think it's Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And so, I'm trying to remember here. You have Missouri here. I go up Missouri, so I would have gone up to Kansas City. Okay, yeah, I definitely went up Kansas City. And then I drive up to, that would have been Council Bluffs, Iowa. Yeah, because I remember, like, I was on the interstate in Council Bluffs, which is right next to Omaha, and the interstate never goes into Omaha. And I was wondering whether or not I should make a detour into Omaha just to say I've been to Nebraska, but I didn't do that, and I kind of regret it right now. And to this day, I have not been to Nebraska. So if I ever release a state map and you're wondering why Nebraska's empty, that's why. So instead I go straight up. I go up to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And yeah, once, I'm trying to remember. It's Missouri, Iowa, and then I think I would have gone into South Dakota then. Yeah, so then once I entered South Dakota, what was interesting about it is that there was nothing in South Dakota. Like once you cross the border, like, it's just like desolate. And it's desolate until you see the lights to Sioux Falls, basically. The good thing is the interstate was 80 miles an hour, and that was like the first time I'd seen an 80 miles an hour speed limit. so which was awesome. But so I'm going to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and it's just crazy. Like 10 miles, I finally see lights to a city after seeing nothing for a couple hours. So I get to Sioux Falls, and once again I got a DoorDash here, and I think I did okay in that city too. Excuse me. And then there's another community, there's a suburb called T, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know why. I don't think they actually sold sweet tea in South Dakota. In T. That'd be fun if they did. But I think I remember, okay, so I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, DoorDashing, and I do that for a few more hours, and then okay, I go to rest. I go to another truck stop, sleep there. Then the next morning, I'm on my way to Montana, and this is kind of where I decide that's the point of no return once I go west. Because at this point, I'm just going north, but once I go west, that's the point of no return. So, but before I make that turn, there's another community called Brandon, South Dakota. And the reason I'm bringing that up is around this time, there was this meme going around about "Let's Go Brandon" chant. If you don't know what that was, there was a NASCAR race where the fans weren't saying nice things about then President Joe Biden, and the NASCAR announcer lady said they're saying "Let's go Brandon" because Brandon won the race. So "Let's Go Brandon" became a meme for a while, and I did kind of like that meme. That was funny. But anyway, I decided to take a picture, and then I leave Brandon, South Dakota, and then I go west to, and I'm on my way to, I think it's Billings, Montana. But on the way to Montana, there's this thing called Mount Rushmore. And I'm thinking it's just like a mountain that people just look at while they're driving. But there's actually like a park with like all the state flags and like even the territories. And there's just so many people there. It was, I mean, I just didn't expect Mount Rushmore to look like that. But it was like almost like an entrance to a theme park. It was crazy. I think that's because I paid the admission to go in there, and I take my first TikTok there, where I just do a pan around of Mount Rushmore, and I'm gonna be using this TikTok account that I just created. I'm gonna be using that for my my filmings of all the arenas. Like when I would go to these arenas, I'd have my phone like this, and I would just turn it around with my face there, proving I was there. But that's later on. So I stay at Mount Rushmore for about 30 minutes. Then I'm like, okay, that's enough. Then I keep heading west. I go through the northern part of Wyoming before I go into Montana. And then eventually I end up in Billings and do some more DoorDashing in Billings. And then I remember that night I had Taco John's, because when I'm going to see my bro in Minnesota, Taco John's is like my favorite fast food joint in the world. So every time I go up to Minnesota, and I'm gonna have Taco John's. So I saw it at Billings. I think I ended my DoorDash early just so I could have Taco John's at that point. Like I wanted it so bad. So I get Taco John's, then I find another truck stop to sleep in. So far I'm okay on the truck stops, but I'm starting to see like at some of these truck stops that they have signs that say no overnight parking. Now, I know like some of them don't, some enforce them, some don't. But I'm a risk averse person, so I like to avoid conflict whenever possible here. and that'll come up pretty soon here, because I'm about to get to my destination of Washington State. And right now it's going to be Spokane, Washington, which is about an hour and a half north of Pullman. I'm going to get acquainted with Spokane here during this tour. As the tour goes on, I'm going to have cities that I end up going to a lot because they're on the way to other places, and Spokane's going to be one of those places. So, but right now we're in Billings, Montana. So I'm going to go through the rest of Montana. So I go through Bozeman, which is right by the Continental Divide, and it's very windy. And then I go up to Missoula, which is beautiful. And that's before I hit the northern, I think it's a peninsula, the northern part of Idaho. A place called Coeur d'Alene. And then I enter Washington State, and I think I'm in Spokane at that point. So here I am. I've made it to Spokane. It's the day before, and so I'm going to do more DoorDash in Spokane. And because I have nothing to do that day, I think it's a Monday afternoon, Monday evening, so I DoorDash for a while there. It's a pretty decent market, so I'm happy with what I make, and I get really comfortable with the city layout. So that was really cool. And one other thing I'll mention about Spokane that kind of surprised me was that I saw 2 Confederate flags in Spokane. I'm like, to me that's crazy because Spokane's nowhere near the South. So then I think about it. Well, I also noticed that Spokane's a very white city, and I'm not saying, and don't get this wrong. These are like 2 individuals here. I know, like every city has idiots and whatnot. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because, you know, like in the South, I at least get the argument, like in the South, that you could be honoring an ancestor there. I don't think that's the case in like north of that. Which parallel was it? North of Missouri, north of Maryland. If you're in a state north of that, and you have no connection to the Civil War, then why are you flying that flag? I mean, that's just stupid. But yeah, the fact that 2 people did that, and I think at that point, like where I was in Alabama, I hadn't seen that flag in years, so that's probably why it shocked me a little bit. So yeah, so that's Spokane. But I mean, it was a great city. Otherwise, I mean, it's clear that there's things to do in Spokane, but it's not so big. Kind of like Birmingham a little bit. And so, like, you're gonna notice, like, I'm gonna start comparing these things to things I knew. So Spokane, I was comparing to Birmingham. And it was, and I mean, okay, it was November, so it wasn't snowing in Spokane. Trying to think of anything else. All right, so it's the night before college basketball season begins, and the reason I chosen Washington State to start the tour was because, so the same night, the same day that Washington State was playing, that night, Idaho, which is 8 miles from Pullman. Well, no, I take that back. That's the next night. So Washington State's playing, then that night Gonzaga's playing. The thing about Gonzaga, though, is Gonzaga tickets are the hardest tickets to get in college basketball. Not necessarily the most expensive, but hardest to get because they're not on the secondary market. Like, you can try going on SeatGeek or Ticketmaster or TakePics, whatever, and try to find a Gonzaga ticket. You cannot do that. You'll get 0 results. So what I did, what I was doing, because I was trying to do a Washington State and Gonzaga doubleheader that day, was I was, yeah, so I actually put an ad on Craigslist. That's right. I put a Craigslist ad, which had not been relevant in my adulthood. But yeah, it's like I'm kind of desperate, and I actually got a hit, but I thought it was kind of a scam, the one comment I got, so I didn't answer it, and then I leave that alone, just checking my email every so often. So anyway, I found a place to rest up for the night, and I don't remember where it was. It was some truck stop. But yeah, I get some rest at the truck stop. Then we get to the next morning in the beginning of college basketball season. So I think we're gonna start the next episode with the beginning of the actual basketball tour. This episode was about me talking about the context and what I was, and the context of the tour and how it started. So I think this is a good place for me to stop the first episode, but I'm going to be continuing this series. Next episode, I'm going to talk about starting with Washington State and the few days afterwards. And eventually this whole series, I'm going to cover the whole trip. But it's fun for me to just go down memory lane, and eventually there's going to be some cool stories I'm going to have here. So stick around for that. But I hope I give you some insight as to what happened on that trip. And if you want to ask me some questions in the comments, I'll see if I remember. But anyway, thank you for following the channel. Thanks for everybody that's followed me over the years. And maybe you enjoyed the series. I don't know. So that being said, I'll see y'all next time. So long, everybody.